This is live from my office, and Dr. Kevin Most is back. We're going to talk about the Delta variant and the mess we find ourselves in again that's on the horizon. Is it too late to stop the inevitable from happening again and shutting down everything? It is not too late. But we're at the fork in the road. We're at a crisis point. I'm going to save my comments for the conversation with Dr. Most. And just take a deep cleansing breath. Come on, do it with me now. Now, wherever you are. I don't feel much better. All right, let's talk the Olympics, though. Well, you know, we've probably had lessened expectations for the Tokyo Games, and certainly when Simone Biles went out, and God bless her on the recovery from what she's dealing with, and anyone dealing with mental health. If you listen to me, you know what a big deal that is to me. But in the meantime, I think the games have been quite enjoyable, and I hope you've seen some of the action. As you would guess, I've tried to research and find things that other people aren't talking about related to these games, and we're going to get to a few items, the sort of Olympic fun facts, Olympic unusual facts. We'll get to those in just a second. But before I do that, let me just say this and all episodes of Live from My Office could not happen without David Hochberg and Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID or 56david.com. Thank you for your continued support. In addition to that, you can listen everywhere podcasts live on all of your major and somewhat less platforms. They're all important. Some of them aren't as major as others, but they're all good, damn it, and I'm glad we're with them. So wherever you listen to podcasts, do me a favor and click subscribe, like, follow, whatever their format is, to make sure you never miss an episode of Live from My Office, and so we can pump up these numbers to where they really are, where people are really listening and enjoying the show all the time. And again, I always say this, but it's important. Download Live from My Office for your dad, your mom, your grandparents, your uncle, your aunt, your friends, maybe your own kids. Maybe you're more technically savvy than they are. But let's not assume that just because we listen to podcasts, everybody gets it. Everybody doesn't yet, but soon they will. And with your help, we'll get a few more people on board. So don't mock those who don't understand podcasts like you do. Take a moment and show them how they can get Live from My Office in every episode all the time. All right, moving on. Let's talk about the Olympic Games. And for the sake of a label here, let's just call these Olympic Things You Didn't Know. I know it needs a better title, but who's got that kind of time? Item number one, this is kind of cool. The medals for the Tokyo Games are made from gold, silver, and bronze, as you know. But in these games, they are extracted from recycled electronics, like old smartphones and digital cameras and handheld games and laptops. So good for the Tokyo Olympic Committee for doing that. And, somebody like Caleb Dressel with his, 5 gold medals now? He's wearing a lot of old phones around his neck. Item number two, one of the greatest unknown athletes of all time, U.S. gymnast George Iser. He won 6 medals in the 1904 games with the use of, as they called it then, only one flesh and blood leg. He lost the limb as a child after being hit by a train, and he used a wooden prosthetic, similar to what was used by soldiers who had their legs amputated in the Civil War. And George Washington wants us to talk about his wooden teeth. Come on. This George, even greater story. He won his medals over the course of just one day. He earned gold for the gymnastic parallel bars, for 25-foot rope climbing. Yep, that was in the games, by the way. Sports that are no longer in the games, but once were. We'll get that in a second. There was something called the long horse vault. Don't know if it actually involved a long horse. He won a silver for the pommel horse and bronze for the horizontal bar. George Iser, one of the great, seemingly unknown athletes of all time. Next up, item number 3, Dr. Benjamin Spock, the best-selling author and baby doc, was also an Olympic gold medalist. He and his teammates were rowing champs at the 1924 Paris Olympics. And don't forget, the games are going to Paris the next time around. As a matter of fact, many Parisians are already practicing being rude to tourists and visitors. Next up, item number 4, Paul McCartney was one of the great acts that performed at the London Olympics opening ceremony in 2012. Any idea what he was paid? Anyone? Keep in mind, he's worth a couple of $1 billion. He got $1.57 in U.S. dollars. Why? Well, even though the musicians and others that performed donated their time, they needed to earn some amount of money to make the contracts they signed official. I don't know where Paul spent his $1.57, but good for him. Speaking of music, at that 2012 opening ceremony, there was another story that came out. The opening ceremony management folks approached a guy named Bill Kerbishley, who managed The Who, the rock band The Who. And they asked Bill if Keith Moon could appear in 2012, which would be difficult because he died, I think around 1978. The manager was not able to deliver Keith Moon, though that would have been some kind of TV package. From 1912, as we continued, from 1912 to 1954, the Olympics awarded medals for art. Art. Alongside gymnastics and swimming and, and all the other things. An Olympian could compete in painting, sculpture, architecture, literature, and music, as long as whatever they were submitting was inspired by the concept of sport. Now, you may think it got pulled after 1954 because, it's not athletics. No, it got pulled because the artists were selling what they made, and that made them no longer amateur athletes. Art. Can you imagine? Architecture. Bob, we're going to need your work, the drawings, the blueprints, all of your documents for the building that you're going to put up so we can decide if you've won a bronze. Art. It's crazy. Next up, the 1904 Olympic Marathon was one of the weirdest races ever. Many of the competitors had never run a marathon before. One guy showed up in a full-length suit with dress pants. The route wasn't paved, which meant athletes had to contend with just big clusters of dust whenever the wind kicked up. Made it difficult to breathe. Only 14 of the 32 men who competed actually crossed the finish line, and a guy named Fred Loers, the guy who supposedly won the race, actually got a ride in a car for about 11 miles of the race after he got a cramp. That would be the Rosie Ruiz move. You remember the late Rosie Ruiz? In 1980, she ran just the last half mile of the Boston Marathon, but for 8 days claimed she was the winner until an investigation proved that she wasn't. They also took back the time that she had in the New York City Marathon that qualified her for Boston. She allegedly ran the New York City Marathon earlier. In fact, someone was a witness and said, no, I met her on the subway. So she took the subway in New York. She took her car or a cab or whatever in Boston. And when she jumped in the last half mile, I guess we have to give this to her. She didn't know no other women had passed and that she would win the race. Later on in life, she was charged with embezzling $60,000 from a business. She was in a coke deal gone bad, never did real serious time in jail, but always maintained that she didn't cheat, leading up to her death from cancer at the age of 66. One of the things that really tipped off people, in case you forgot the Rosie Ruiz story, and since we'll never really know the Fred Loers story, was after the race, several people noticed she really wasn't that sweaty. Remember, she only ran a half mile. This is pre-internet, so there wasn't a lot of monitoring of these things, but they did find out in that 8-day period that she wasn't in any photos or video. So when they asked Rosie why she wasn't tired, she said, well, I just woke up this morning with a whole lot of energy. Yeah, we're going to need to look into that. Next up, during the Torino Games in 2006, Canadian skier Sarah Renner broke her ski pole midway through the event. A Norwegian ski coach, whose name I couldn't possibly pronounce, handed her a spare one, and the Canadians went on to win silver. The Norwegians finished off the podium, came in fourth. To show their gratitude for the moment of true sportsmanship, they presented said coach with 5 tons of Canadian maple syrup. The Norwegians accepted the gift. Meanwhile, the coach has supposedly only recently tried it and said, it's sweet and unusual, much like a Canadian girl I once knew. There's this story, too. In honor of the Los Angeles Olympics, McDonald's offered free burgers, fries, and Cokes every time a U.S. athlete reached the medals podium. However, when the Soviet Union dropped out of the 84 games, America went on to an unprecedented winning streak, and a whole bunch of McDonald's locations ran out of everything, including hamburger buns. Would you take the patty without the bun? One rep said that while the promotion was a huge success, it was also, and it remains to this day, the most costly promotion in the history of McDonald's. And speaking of McDonald's, you may know that this time around, McDonald's is out of the Olympics. The Tokyo Olympic Committee, in cooperation with the IOC, cut a deal with McDonald's, who were glad to save their money. There would be no more McDonald's food for athletes as there has been at games for 30 years. Unlimited food for a long period of time, but at the 2016 games, it was the first time they actually put a limit on things. It was a max of 20 items. Now, you could go for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so you could get 20 items each time. But, for instance, some of the weightlifters probably took more than their share. The McDonald's folks don't know if they will be back for Paris or L.A. in 8 years, but as of now, they're out. You know those inflatable tube men you see at car dealerships all over the place? You know they come from the Olympics? The inventor was a famed puppet artist named Peter Minshall, who was inspired by the dancing style of carnival celebrants, look how fancy I am, in his native Trinidad and Tobago. They were used in the 1996 opening ceremony in Atlanta, and they've stuck around ever since. And for whatever reason, seem to be really necessary at your local car dealer. Continuing on, this is a cool story. The Lithuanian basketball team couldn't afford to participate in the 1992 Summer Olympics. There's actually a documentary about this called The Other Dream Team. Now, you remember, 92 was Michael Jordan, Chuck, and Charles Barkley. I mean, just the greatest team ever assembled. But you know who came in third? You know who won the bronze? The Lithuanian basketball team. This was not long after the Soviet Union broke up, and Lithuanians were celebrating their independence, but they couldn't afford to field a team. It's a longer story, and it's well played out in the Other Dream Team documentary, which I recommend. But the Grateful Dead, the band, got wind of this, and they wrote a check to support the basketball team and give them enough money to get to the games, where, again, they won the bronze. How about that? Meanwhile, they were able to sell Grateful Dead merchandise, and when they did their official team photo after winning the bronze, they didn't wear their basketball uniforms. They wore the national colors of Lithuania, yellow, green, and red, in tie-dyed Grateful Dead shirts. That's a pretty good story. I mentioned that there's a lot of sports that have been removed from the Olympics, old sports that were no longer around in the Olympics. Did you know one of them was tug of war? Tug of war, an Olympic sport from 1900 to 1920. Great Britain won the most medals in the event, 5. The United States actually had 3. At one point, there was a two-handed shot put competition. In gymnastics, there was something called club swinging. It sounds really dangerous. There was rope climbing. There was a diving event called plunging for distance. I want to know how long the volunteer had to hold his breath. It had to measure how deep you went. Croquet was an Olympic sport, and so was, actually quite recently, solo synchronized swimming. And no, I don't know how that works. And finally, our final Olympic item of stuff you probably didn't know about the Olympics. I got to put this under a different category, I suppose. I'm just going to put this in the "oh, come on" category. Australia ordered 70,000 condoms for the games of 2000 that they hosted, but halfway through, they ran out of condoms, and they had to buy 20,000 more. During the next Summer Games in Athens, Durex, the condom company, donated 130,000 condoms to, quote, smooth the performance of the world's elite sports folks in the arena and under the covers. And 12 years later in Rio, organizers supplied the Olympic Village with, are you ready? You're not ready. 450,000 condoms, which worked out to an average of 42 per athlete. Oh, come on. That's your Olympic stuff you didn't know until you heard this show, and now you do. All right, let's serious it up. Let's take a break. And when we come back, we're going to have to talk about the mess we're in again with COVID. We thought we were through with it. We're not. and it's really coming down to our last chance to save us from us. Dr. Kevin Most with important information. Right after this, you're listening to Live from My Office. If you're refinancing your existing home, do what I did when I needed to refi. I called Team Hochberg, a trusted local lender. Don wanted to refinance his 3.75% loan. He heard thousands of Team Hochberg ads. So he called Team Hochberg, right? Naturally. What? I'm being told that's not right. Wrong. Don called his current lender, who quoted a low rate with a closing cost of $3,400. Well, Don thought those costs were high, and he was right, so he called Team Hochberg. Should have done that in the first place. David explained to Don how his current lender was overcharging him. He helped him secure the same low rate and half the closing costs. So let's review. Don's current lender tried drilling him with excessive closing costs. Team Hochberg helped Don do the exact same rate and half the closing costs. Team Hochberg helped me and thousands of listeners, and like Don, doing things like securing low rates and low closing costs and saving stress in your life. Well, David Hochberg's there, and he just wants to save you a little money. 855-56-DAVID or 56david.com. That number again is 855-563-2843 or 56david.com for Homeside Financial, an equal housing lender, NMLS number 1124061. This is Live from My Office, and my friend Dr. Kevin Most is here. How are you?
I'm doing great, Steve. How about yourself?
I'm doing fine as well. I'm concerned, but anybody that has listened to you on this podcast since we started it is not surprised that we're in trouble again. But let's go over the basics here. How dangerous is the Delta variant?
Well, up till 2 days ago, we were really thinking it was okay, not bad, but tolerable. And now with the newest data that's come out, it's really gotten our attention because now we are seeing that those who've been vaccinated are not as protected as we thought from spreading. And we're starting to get more data in now that's showing that this is causing a little bit more severe illness than we thought it would, as it has spread through mainly the southern states, but across the United States.
Around the Midwest, Missouri's numbers were huge. Wherever there are unvaccinated folks, the disease is spreading more quickly. No surprise, I assume?
No surprise at all. And really, if you look at the map of the entire country, it's almost like we dipped it in red. You look at, we are in a world of hurt as far as the spread of this Delta variant. And so the news that came out yesterday, saying that those who are vaccinated carry a very high viral load, even though they may not show symptoms, is the most concerning, because we thought that those who were vaccinated would carry a low viral load and really wouldn't act in spreading it. And that's why we said, take off your mask. It's okay. We're finding out is almost the exact opposite.
So I want to make sure people understand this point. I'm fully vaccinated. So are you. Yep. Does that mean that we could be carrying a viral load and spreading it even though we are fully vaccinated?
100%. That is the biggest concern. So for those people, the geeks like us that kind of watch this, there was a large study in Massachusetts, in Barnstable County, Massachusetts, where they had an outbreak. It's a small county, but they had an outbreak of 470 cases. And of those, 350 of those individuals had been fully vaccinated. Think about that. Of those 350, 80% of them had some symptoms. Now, only 4 were hospitalized, and there were no deaths. So the efficacy of the vaccine still plays out. That's 1% actually hospitalized versus the 5% that we would normally say. But the bigger concern is that all these individuals were carrying it, and then they looked at their viral load, and they saw extremely high viral loads, even in those who had been vaccinated. So that's the concern now.
So obviously,
and it makes sense as we look across the map right now and go, how is everybody red? Well, now it's starting to make sense as to why everybody's red.
Right, and that's obviously why we all we all need to wear masks when we go into indoor spaces where other people are. Correct.
Correct. What we thought in the past is we didn't know. Do we need to protect others from ourselves? The initial studies, no, it looks like the vaccine actually protects you about 65% from spreading. That now has been proven in a large study to be false. And boy, it certainly looks like those who have been vaccinated not only can get the Delta variant and have some symptoms, but more importantly, spread this very easily. Because now we know, we thought this was about the same contagiousness as the initial strain, and now we're finding it's 3 to 4 to 5 times more contagious, getting up into the levels of what we see with chickenpox.
And chickenpox, if you're in the room and you haven't been vaccinated, you're going to get it, right?
Yeah, measles certainly. If you're in a room of people and you haven't, and someone walks in, you haven't been vaccinated, someone walks in with measles, you're going to get it, But chickenpox, very high. Many of us who are younger or older, I should say, they used to have chickenpox parties, right, before we had the vaccine for chickenpox, where parents would put kids in the same room just so that they all got chickenpox at the same time. That's how contagious it is.
So the important point we make or need to make in addition to this is there was a blowhard congressman from Texas, which sounds like a redundancy, earlier this week who shot his mouth off. But I think there are people who are legitimately confused in this same manner. Is it a vaccine or a mask? Or a mask or a vaccine, and why are we back in this position? It was never a zero-sum game, right? It was never an either-or.
100%. And when that question is asked, why are we in that position? Because our vaccination rates dropped off so dramatically. Had they continued at that pace and we hit that herd immunity number by the middle of July, which we would have had we continued on this track, we would not be having this discussion right now.
So the exact people who are screaming about freedom and the people who are saying that this is some sort of sham and we're not going to go backwards. Well, these are the people forcing us to go backwards.
Well, not only are we going to go backwards from an economy and a socialized, being out and socializing, we are going backwards in healthcare, and people don't understand that part of it. You look right now what's going on in hospitals across the South, and even up here. We were down to a handful. We were down to 3 COVID patients. We're now north of 20, with, many coming in every single day, and now we're deciding hospitalized or not. So the world has got to understand, or at least the United States has to understand, we're putting those same individuals that we stressed for the last 18 months, thinking that we're going to get them a reprieve and some vacation and some downtime, and now putting those same healthcare providers back in that stressful environment and stressing the system again. And it's not going to be good.
Are we headed for bed shortages and things of that nature?
Well, they already are. If you look in Florida, you look in Missouri, you look at Texas, absolutely they are. Would we be looking at bed shortages here now if we started to see these COVID numbers? Absolutely. A lot of hospitals right now, we're running at capacity right now because we're playing catch up on illnesses that were not taken care of over the past 18 months. So we've been full every day for probably the last 3 months, which, again, has stressed the health system enough as it is. But now to put more COVID on top of that, it could be a potential disaster.
Realistically, you and I know, because this has been a painful lesson to learn in the last year, but the stubbornness and the narrow-mindedness of people about this, and it's my word, the selfishness of people about this is not going to change. Do you have more optimism than I do about not going back to shutting down and all the things we had to do last year?
No, it would not surprise me if we started to see more of a shutdown. We'll ease into it if these numbers continue. People have an opportunity right now, the unvaccinated, to get vaccinated and slow this spread. Because we have to remember, we're talking about vaccinated people having the illness, but not being in the hospital and not dying. That's the stress point. So if we vaccinate enough people, it'll decompress the hospitals and decompress the health systems and allow for this illness to kind of peter out on its own, if we can do that. But we still have so many people that don't believe in the vaccine, and I don't know, I can't tell you what more I can say to say
right.
It works.
Right.
And they don't trust it. But, it could be a very ugly fall if we don't get some changes here pretty quickly.
It's a simple Google search that will achieve the results, or just pay attention to the news. And I'm talking about the legitimate news, not what you get forwarded by your neighbors on Facebook. But on a day-to-day basis, you're seeing people saying, I wish I got the vaccine. This is the sickest I've ever been. Or my father or mother wished they got the vaccine, but they didn't and they died. This Delta variant is more vicious than the original strain, yes?
Absolutely. And we didn't think it was initially, but certainly we're seeing that right now. And your point is well taken. You can go to any person in the hospital right now, and 99.5, 99.7% of them are unvaccinated. And you ask them, would you be vaccinated? Would you have been vaccinated had you known this? 100% say yes.
So what about the breakthrough discussion, the chance of you or I as fully vaccinated people getting COVID? What do we know there?
Yeah, we know, because look at the study in Massachusetts. It certainly we are seeing breakthrough cases. Those breakthrough cases are not giving people the advanced symptoms to require hospitalizations. Even those with comorbidities seem to be tolerating it okay. The ones that are not tolerating are the unvaccinated. So certainly we're seeing more breakthrough cases. And now when we look at the contagiousness and the viral load, the breakthrough cases start to make more sense. And now it totally makes sense as to why we're in the position we're in, especially with the newest data that just came out on Friday.
Is there a layman's way to explain why a breakthrough could occur?
Well, there's a couple things. One, remember when we discuss breakthrough cases, we're not talking about individuals who are being hospitalized. We're not talking about individuals who are dying from this. They're getting symptoms from it. So kind of a breakthrough analogy is, I got vaccinated. My immune system thinks they know pretty good about COVID, but they don't know a lot about Delta. And because of that, we're going to get symptoms. They're not going to be as bad, but we're going to get some symptoms as the immune system starts to figure out the Delta strain, which is exactly what's happening.
So this is not science that's surprising. This is science that is science, and we're fools not to listen to it. If we can't stem the tide of it, all we can do is appeal to those who have been hesitant for whatever reason they've been hesitant, but maybe now are scared enough, and they should be, to do the right thing and get out and get it because they're available everywhere. There's not a line, and you will be a part of stemming the tide of this thing to any degree we can.
True. And anybody who says, I want to wait for natural immunity, you know what? Two things happen there. One, it extends this whole process out, and we'll start to have financial and social impacts as we start shutting things down again and going back into lockdowns. And two, boy, you run a risk. Individuals who are unvaccinated and say, I want to get natural immunity, okay. But boy, you run the risk of ending up in the hospital. You end up with the risk of not being able to taste or smell for the rest of your life, having brain fog the rest of your life, dying, being on a ventilator. I mean, natural immunity is not a great way to get this illness. And we have proven that just looking at the number of deaths, hospitalizations, and long-haul COVID patients that are out there right now.
If you're 20 to 40 or 45, I guess, Delta seems to be particularly vicious. We don't know why yet, do we?
Well, we don't, but it's kind of interesting. That's almost a game of math and a game of statistics, because we know that our vaccination rates for those over the age of 55 is extremely high. Whether they're educated to a point of knowing that this could kill me and they got it or what. But we're looking at these numbers and say, wow, it's not impacting those over the age of 55 as much. But if someone's got to sit down and do the math and say, well, wait a second, our immunization or vaccination rates in that age group is so high, when the vaccination rates in that other group is so low, we're seeing this big impact when in fact it may just be math.
Is there any way to know when we might be able to get kids that are under 12 vaccinated?
No, I think that there's going to be some hesitancy from the American Academy of Pediatrics. The studies should be done fairly soon, at least the initial studies. And the initial studies were very promising. We're all looking for December, January, which again is going to put everybody in the school setting. What do we do with kids in school, knowing what we're knowing now about the Delta variant? And we have to remember, too, that the kids that we got into these studies was before the Delta variant got up to 85%.
Right.
We started this pediatric studies when the Delta variant was in single digits in this country.
So for those of us who are fully vaccinated, the one thing we can do to help this problem is to willingly wear a mask in indoor spaces, grocery stores, wherever you plan on going. And, just realize the risk that you are undertaking for yourself or could possibly be causing others if you are going to go to a ball game or go to wherever. What do you want to add to that?
Yeah, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. One of the things that I look back, and it's always nice to be a Monday morning quarterback, but looking back, what we really should have done is we never should have stopped masks indoors, because all that did was it uneven the playing field. In other words, the thought was if you're not vaccinated, you should be wearing a mask indoors. Well, I can tell you, I look at any event I go to, anywhere I'm inside, I don't see anybody wearing a mask. Those that are unvaccinated just say, you know what, I'm not wearing a mask. So had they played the level playing field, who knows where we would be right now. But going forward, those who have been vaccinated are being asked to step up again and take I don't want to call it a burden, but the inconvenience of wearing a mask right now to make sure that everyone's wearing a mask, even the unvaccinated, which will be the one thing that we can do to slow this stem, knowing how contagious the Delta variant is.
Yeah, and I can't speak to other people's level of comfort or uncomfortability, but the type of medical year I've had with a full knee replacement surgery, a couple of bouts of skin cancer. I mean, I've almost become an honorary doctor with the medical visits I've had this year. I put a mask on the other day and went into Jewel and did the grocery shopping and came back out. And of course, it's not your favorite thing to do, but it's not a big deal. But again, this is something we've been saying forever. So all we're saying is for the reasonably minded, which I think is the vast majority of the audience that listens to this podcast, do it for you, do it for the people you love, because if you don't, we're just going to head in the wrong direction faster, and you may be saying goodbye to somebody. And that's not hyperbole.
Yeah. And we know they work. People that say masks don't work, I'm sorry. We proved it all last year.
Yep.
That masks decrease the infection rate for not only influenza, COVID, RSV. We have shown that every mitigating thing that we have done has actually worked. So it kind of frustrates us at times in the health profession, especially seeing now what is happening to our colleagues, especially in the South, knowing that it may be headed this way shortly.
What do you anticipate in the next week to 2 weeks at your hospital at Northwestern CDH?
I expect to creep up. Although DuPage County is the highest vaccinated county in the state of Illinois, we still have cultural pockets where vaccination rates aren't high enough. And I expect that we're going to continue to see increases. I don't think we're going to get into the 130s, but it wouldn't surprise me if we got to 30, 40, 50, which is a big burden on the hospital at that time. My
16-year-old niece just had lunch with us, and we were talking about going back to school, and she's in the greater Chicago public school system. And I said, well, how do you feel about wearing a mask all the time? And she said, I'm glad they made a decision. Said if they had it open-ended, I'd be nervous about wearing it or nervous about not wearing it. So along with the normal teenager things about feeling like you stick out one way or the other, she's also saying the science matters to me. And this is a way to guarantee that we're all on that level playing field you talked about before. Do you agree with all that?
Yeah. And one thing I would say to kids, because unless the governor changes his mind, he's going to leave that down to the superintendents of each of the districts, what their decision is going to be. Now, hopefully he'll change and say, it's mandatory for everybody. What we're going to need to do is have the right students step up. There's so much peer pressure in students right now and so much stress in their lives going back to school again. I'm sorry, but we're going to need, I hate to say it, but we're going to need those football players, those basketball players, those kids to step up and wear masks and be role models. And I hate when we're using those individuals as role models, but unfortunately in that age group, that's often who the role models are. Who are the cool kids, and can we make sure that they wear masks so that everybody does?
Yeah.
Because if they don't, the peer pressure is going to be, he's not wearing them. I don't want to wear one because I won't be cool.
Yeah, you know what? I'd say that for parents and young people, young adults as well. If you're a leader, and you're a leader or not, but if you're a social leader of whatever group you're in, be a leader. Wear a mask. And, try to keep your friends healthy, even to some extent against their will. What other questions are out there that we would need to tackle? Because the only one that still occurs to me is that if I have thought about having some sort of surgery and doctors want to do it, that I shouldn't be thinking I'm going to put this off till September or October if I can get it done now, right?
Correct. Anybody who's waiting for a procedure, whether it's a mammography or colonoscopy, or get it done now. I'd hate for hospitals to go back. I mean, we have hospitals in Florida right now that have canceled elective surgeries again. So anybody who is planning on that, don't postpone it anymore, because it could be postponed much longer.
So again, the science hasn't failed. The vaccines we have are frankly miraculous. They haven't failed. The failure has been in the fact that the honor system doesn't work. And in a free society, there's a lot of people who've decided that they're going to be unvaccinated and damn the risk to themselves or everybody else. We can't have that. That's why we're back where we are. And I just hope the next time we talk, Doc, that it's going to be more optimistic.
So do I. I really do. You know, and we talk on a regular basis. I would love 7 to 10 days from now that we're talking and saying, boy, we're stemming the tide here. We're seeing a slow. Whether it's a natural slow that the Delta variant just for some reason starts to slow down, which it doesn't show that it's going to, or we have hit a point where we have enough people who have been infected with the Delta and the vaccination that we start to see a slow. But the prediction is not until the end of October.
And all I would ask you, too, is do not turn to politicians. Do not turn to Fox News or MSNBC for your information. Turn to doctors. Turn to the science. And turn to concern about your health and the people you love. And then we're going to be okay. But this mess is not over. And we need to grow up and realize we got to do the right thing. And we don't have time to wait till next week to do the right thing. We got to do the right thing now. Doc, I thank you as always. My best to you and all the overworked staff at your hospital, at Del Nor, the entire Northwestern system, but all over the country. All the medical folks you know everywhere who are busting their ass to try to keep us really from harming ourselves. And I can't imagine how frustrating that is at times, but I'm glad you're there doing it. And thanks for doing this.
Well, I appreciate having the opportunity to share to your educated listeners that are going to be able to go out and make a difference. Something that they hear that they heard us talk about. If they can share that with a neighbor, a family member, or something, then we made an impact, and that's all we really want to do.
Yep. Well said, my friend. Stay healthy.
You got it.
If you're interested in refinancing your existing home or to lower your interest rate, pay off debt, shorten the term of your loan, or renovate your home, do what I did when I wanted to refi a home equity loan, when my sister wanted to finance her home, when my daughter wanted to finance her home. Look, we all call Team Hochberg. Too many of us put it off. They go, this Hochberg guy, man, I'm hearing a lot of things. Steve's always telling me he's a good guy. Look, he's loud. He's direct. But all he wants to do is save you money. And I highly recommend you pick up the phone or get online immediately and check it out as well. With any money situation related to your home, Team Hochberg can, in all likelihood, help. Team Hochberg is truly a team, by the way. Everything related to your house. He's got a guy. So what are you waiting for? Your procrastination isn't going to help you with your debt issue. Your debt isn't going to magically disappear. And the consultation's absolutely free. Call Team Hochberg. Do it now and see if they can lower your rate or pay off debt to reduce your monthly payment or help you with your credit rating or help you with a student loan. Look, it's all there for Team Hochberg. They've helped me and thousands of listeners secure low rates and reduce their monthly payments, but they can't help if you don't call 855-56-DAVID or 56david.com. That's 855-563-2843, 855-563-2843, or 56david.com. Homeside Financial and Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 1124061. Welcome back to Live from My Office, and this charity you should be a part of, you should know about, you should donate to in any way you can. This time around relates directly to the COVID mess. It's Save the Children. Now, Save the Children, you probably heard about it. Maybe you're already somebody that helps. But go to SaveTheChildren.org and look around the website. One of the highest rated major charities in the world. 85% of every dollar guaranteed to go specifically to Save the Children. Now, Save the Children works to help poor kids worldwide. And that includes here in the United States. The mess of kids in third world countries is beyond tragic. And Save the Children is on the front lines doing something about it. Take the normal, horrible existence that an extremely underprivileged child deals with, and then add COVID. It's just a nightmare that, well, we have to all pitch in and do our part to see if we can help. So Save the Children, again, one of the highest rated charities at Charity Navigator, charity rating agency that I highly endorse. Go to savethechildren.org and click on donate and see how you can help. But spend some time on the website there too, and you'll see what they're doing. And God bless them for the work they continue to do. Thank you, Dr. Kevin Most, for the important, disturbing, frustrating information that you provided to us. But we need it. We need to hear it. And I just want to reiterate something that he said that I think is super important. And that is that we can all be leaders in this. But if you're a parent or grandparent and you've got a teen, there really is a leader at school, whether the kid is popular because they're a great kid or because they're an athlete or maybe they're super smart, whatever the case may be. There is a group they influence. And they need to influence kids over the age of 12 to make sure they're taking care of themselves as well. We know this Delta variant is particularly vicious for young, unvaccinated people. So let's not go down that road. And parents and grandparents, please, please, please support your school district's efforts to try to get kids in school and keep them in school. It's frustrating where I do this show from in the state of Illinois that there is not universal masking when school starts up in 2 or 3 or 4 weeks until it's no longer needed. And there's all this indecision and reasons for people to speculate and argue. It doesn't need to be that way. The Chicago school system, with all the faults that Chicago has gotten this right. The Chicago public school system says, yeah, everybody's got to wear a mask. And I think we're going to get to that as well. And other schools around the country should as well. Be careful where you travel. Please, 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 if you haven't yet, get the shot. And if you're fully vaccinated like I am, don't make it worse. Wear a mask in any indoor public space that you can. The grocery store, the drugstore, whatever. We got to go back to that until we don't have to be a part of that because we can't be a part of making this worse. We have to make it better. Nobody wants to go backwards, but the unvaccinated, the people screaming the loudest, are the ones pointing us in that direction. Please get the shot. Thank you, Ross Cochran, for putting this together. By the way, that's the fully vaccinated Ross Cochran, and producing this show and doing such a bang-up job that you do all the time. My name is Steve Cochran. You can reach me at thecochranshow@gmail.com. Email me anytime. And wherever you listen, subscribe, rate, review, and check out the show notes as well. Lots of important information there on the platform you're listening to right now, as a matter of fact. See you next time on Live from My Office.
Thank you for listening to Live from My Office, a service of Monkey Run Productions. All rights reserved. The podcast is hosted by Steve Cochran, and it's mixed, edited, and produced by me, Ross Cochran. Steve is available for corporate speaking gigs. He would love to MC your event, and occasionally, he's funny. Thank you for listening. Head to cochranshow.com for more.